Hello, and welcome to a special production from the Shuttle Tydirium Podcast. I'm Phil Meade, co-pilot on the Shuttle Tydirium, and I'm proud to present this episode in our 4-part backstory series for the Shuttle Tydirium Gencon 2017 narrative event, Assault on Grayskull Base. If you're interested in where this story leads, and want to take part in its dramatic conclusion, consider attending Gencon 2017 and registering for our event. Registration opens on May 28th, and space will be limited. The full rules handbook for the narrative event will be released ahead of registration. For more details, be sure to keep an eye out in all the usual internet places. And you can always listen to the Shuttle Tydirium Podcast for additional information. Now, sit back and enjoy the episode.
Underneath 15 feet of heavy asteroidal metal and rock, the pilots of Killjoy Squadron lounged on improvised hammocks and cots. A bootlegged holodrama flickered in the corner, with two of the rebels snoring softly as they reclined in seats nearby. A few of the newer pilots studied ship specifications and combat maneuvers, trying to commit them to memory. The rest, including Nols and Tellin, huddled around a game of sabacc, substituting the cheap thrills of winning and losing credits for the adrenaline-fueled exhilaration of combat. Everyone wore their flight suits and had their helmets close to hand, one regulation that Bowlin strictly enforced while they were in the ready room on flight alert. Colonel Bowlin watched the sabacc game with only a mild interest as he pawed through a rations pack. High in calories, nutrients, and vitamins, but severely lacking in palatability. It wasn't so bad the first few times you ate it, but after having it a dozen times, Bowlin found it much easier to push the pale brown paste around in its packet than to actually eat it.
Hey, boss, when are we flying our next stop?
Not for a while, Tellin. Still no juicy targets on the board. Just the main refinery and the boneyard. Yeah. Unless you feel like dying for no good reason, that still doesn't leave us with a lot of opportunities.
I'd prefer to die accomplishing something, please.
Careful, kid. The universe might hear you and take that more seriously than you realize.
Don't get religious on me now, boss.
I wouldn't get too worried if I were you. On the other hand, it's almost time for your alert rotation. Last hand, Tellin.
You got it, boss.
Are you going to eat that, Colonel?
Eventually. The medics told me I have to in order to survive. They think this is food for some reason.
Imperial rations aren't known for their edibility, but they didn't cost us much.
Yeah, that freighter seemed almost glad to be rid of them. I guess I don't blame him.
If you have time, I'd like to review the reports on supply convoys with you again. We may have missed something last time. We really need more ordnance for the squadron.
What, you don't like going on ops with 6 torps for 12 ships? Well, I guess it can't hurt to take another look.
Bowlin set down his ration pack and cleared space on the table for his datapad as Tellin headed out to sit in his X-Wing's cockpit so that he would be ready to launch at a moment's notice. Nols picked up his crash helmet from the sabacc table, tucking it neatly under his arm, and stood over the datapad with Bowlin as he scrolled through the reports. What little information they had came through their local contacts and a handful of paid informants that nobody really trusted. Every rebel who'd been with the Alliance for more than a few months had a horror story about a tip that led their friends right into an Imperial ambush. Bowlin wasn't in a hurry to become a character in some cautionary tale.
Ever since that agent Haldon whipped the local ISB into shape, good intel has been a lot harder to come by. Our source inside the Nilgard Sector Command has been pretty quiet.
People are scared. A few well-publicized executions can do that.
Yeah, well, the munitions dump at Asteroid 4 is still tempting. Maybe too tempting, if you take my meaning.
You think it's a trap?
Just have a bad feeling about it. That garrison is smaller than it should be, but it could be for any number of reasons. I mean, a lot of ships got pulled for the Anahuat sector campaign.
We need to hit something. We're not doing the Alliance any good sitting here.
Maybe Gethis has something in mind. Her tip on the bulk freighter got us these ration packs. Disgusting as they are, I prefer them to starvation.
We can reach out to her during the next scheduled transmission. I'll file a request with control and...
pilots, to your ships! All pilots, to your ships!
The pilots of Killjoy Squadron leapt to their feet, scattering Sabak cards, food, and data pads as they grabbed their helmets and bolted through the door. The hangar crew scurried around the squadron's X-Wings, detaching power and fuel lines and yanking chock blocks from the landing skids. Bowlin waved a quick two-fingered salute to the pair of Ugnaughts prepping his ship as he rushed up the ladder and dropped into the cockpit.
We'll know soon enough, R5-D9. Run your scrambled pre-flight.
Killjoy Leader, this is Grayskull Control. You're being scrambled to egress point Beta 2. You are authorized to exceed normal speed limits inside Grayskull Cluster. Mission is close atmospheric support. Rebel cell on Mon Aldis is under attack by Imperial ground and aerospace forces.
That was Captain Gethis' group, Bowlin realized. As his canopies settled into place, the Ugnaughts pulled the ladder and gave him the all-clear signal before rushing off to start prepping a nearby A-wing of Stormcloud Squadron. A harried landing officer gave Bowlin the signal to lift off, and he cut in his repulsors and pulled up his landing skids with practiced ease. The landing officer gave him an abbreviated all-clear wave before rushing to the next X-Wing in line, and Bowlin throttled up, taking his X-Wing through the hangar's magnetic field and out into the vacuum.
Killjoys, this is Killjoy Lead. Take Route 11 and form up at Egress Beta 2. Speed limits rescinded, but don't get cocky. Watch those bangers and get to Beta 2 in one piece. Alright, R5, here we go. Keep your scanners hot.
Bowlin wheeled his X-Wing around, kicking in main engines at full thrust. G-forces pressed him against his crash couch as the inertial dampeners were pushed to their limit. Navigational beacons lit up along Route 11, one of the escape routes the rebels had mapped out in the first few months. It was more tricky and dangerous than some of the more recently mapped routes, but it was also a lot shorter and time mattered the most now. Bowlin blasted into the asteroid field, picking his way between the tightly packed, slow-tumbling asteroids. He was less familiar with Route 11 than he was with some of the field's other mapped routes, but he had still flown it more than a dozen times. The bigger asteroids had a tendency to acquire nicknames. He picked out familiar landmarks as he went: the Crab, the Eyeball, and coming up, the Big Spud. But the smaller ones were what he needed to worry about. They were harder to see, could change course unpredictably if they had a collision or two, wandering into one of the mapped routes. As he brought his X-Wing in a wide arc around the Big Spud, a dark gray cloud of asteroidal dust filled his view screen, like a plume of smoke. The asteroid cluster had a number of such clouds at any time, but he wasn't expecting one here. Bowlin yanked back on the stick and pulled into a climb. The X-Wing shuddered as a bantha-sized asteroid glanced against the belly of the ship. Bowlin was pulled hard toward the left side of his cockpit as the X-Wing was thrown into a spin. He strained and reached for the throttle, transferring thrust from the starboard to port engines to counteract the spin. It was a crude correction, but it was enough to bring the G-forces into a range that the inertial dampeners could handle, and he was able to grab the stick and pull out of the spin a heartbeat before he would have collided with another, even bigger asteroid.
R5, how much damage did we take? Alright, that's not so bad, huh? Lock down that coupling and reroute. Killjoys, this is Leader. Navigational hazard. There's a banger or a dust cloud in the path after the Big Spud. R5, tag that rock and relay the data to the other astromechs. Yeah, we got pretty lucky there. Thanks for the warning.
Bowlin brought his X-Wing back onto the route and proceeded, a little more slowly than he had before. As he approached the outer edges of the asteroid cluster, stars winked into view, and he relaxed slightly. 4 X-Wings, the pilots of Killjoy that had been on patrol when the alert came down, were already formed up at the egress point.
Grayskull Base, this is Killjoy Leader. I'm coming out of the asteroids now. What's the mission looking like?
Killjoy, this is Grayskull. We only have a brief transmission from the Mon Aldis cell. They reported an AT-AT near their position and a squadron of TIE strikers providing air cover. Sounded like the Imperials don't have their exact coordinates, but they were closing in. We anticipate that the Imperials will commit more forces once they find the cell. The Mon Aldis cell is preparing to evacuate and are going to need cover. We are scrambling Whitecap and Stormcloud squadrons now. They'll be right behind you.
Acknowledged. They'll start the jump calculation. Thanks, R5. Get us as close to the planet as you can. You have to be quick, or there isn't going to be anything left to rescue. I know, but there isn't much traffic above Mount Aldous to collide with. We should be fine. Yeah, well, sometimes you need to lean in your luck a little bit. Yeah, I know. Listen, it's just a thing with organics, okay?
Killjoy leader, Killjoy 3. I'm bringing up the rear. We should be clear of the asteroids soon.
Copy 3. Everyone, form up on me. Prepare to receive jump coordinates. Intel is sketchy, but sounds like we've got one AT-AT, probably with support forces, moving in on the Mount Aldous cell's base. It's got air cover, at least one squadron of strikers. But we expect more Imperial forces to show up soon. We'll have Whitecap and Stormcloud backing us up as they launch, but we'll need to make our move before they jump. Our job is to protect the cell as they evacuate, and get out before we need to rescue ourselves.
Are we torpedoes free on that AT-AT?
If it's firing on the cell, yes.
Copy that, boss. I've wanted a Walker silhouette ever since basic flight.
You just might get your chance to. Make sure it's a neck shot. If we take it down, I don't want to spend more than one torpedo doing it.
Leader 3. Coming on position now. Standing by to jump.
Copy 3. All wings, stand by to jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
The distant stars stretched from points into lines, and the swirling blue of hyperspace washed over Bowlin's view screen. It was a short jump, only covering a few dozen light years. Bowlin pulled at his flight gloves, tightening them, and checked the power levels of his laser cannons and shields, even though he'd checked them twice already before the jump. He didn't like just charging into any combat mission, let alone one with other rebels' lives at stake. He took a deep breath as the jump clock ticked down to 0. Mount Aldous loomed large in his view screen, earthy tan and green. The Terminator line split day from night directly below them, and Bowlin could see the lights of the planet's cities in the darkened half of the globe.
Killjoys, follow me in. Keep your S-foils in cruise position. We're hot dropping.
Right behind you, leader.
Bowlin pointed his nose down toward the cell's coordinates on the planet and set his thrusters at the maximum safe atmospheric entry speed. Almost immediately, his force shields began to register friction from the planet's atmosphere.
That fast? Damn it. Imperial patrol at Mark 5, a squadron of TIEs. 30,000 out. We're gonna have company real fast, people.
Copy, leader. Should we try to divert them from the cell's position?
Negative. We're gonna need every ship to deal with those strikers and that walker. Stormcloud and Whitecap can deal with that patrol when they get here.
Understood.
Bowlin's force shields glowed red hot as his X-Wing plummeted through the atmosphere, obscuring his view and forcing him to fly by instrument. His X-Wing's engines whined as the ship encountered denser and denser layers of air, and he pulled back on the throttle as he entered Mount Aldous' stratosphere to avoid burning through the shields with the increasing friction. His view screen cleared up quickly as his speed dropped.
Cell 113A, this is Killjoy Squadron. We're inbound to your position. What's your status?
We need that air cover, Killjoy. Got an AT-AT close on our position from the west. Can't lift off the heavy transport until it's down and its armor is too thick for our guns.
We'll take it down, 113A. Stand by. Mark the cell and the AT-AT on the display, R5. Hang on back there. This could be rough. Coming up on 20 clicks. Set S-foils to attack position.
Enemy signals at Mark 2. Coming up to meet us.
To flight. Hold your approach. Stay high and dive on them after we engage. Everyone else, on me. One pass after you pull out. Then break north. Do not turn with them.
Copy, leader.
Acknowledged.
The enemy fighters, the local garrison most likely, were already climbing at top speed to meet the diving X-Wings, the stupid move that robbed them of speed in the planet's gravity well. Bowlin grinned fiercely. He and a lot of his pilots had grown up flying airspeeders. They would never have made that kind of mistake. Bowlin weaved and bobbed as they entered weapons range. Green laser blasts trickled up towards him, missing him by wide margins as the striker pilots struggled to put him in their sights. Bowlin triggered a burst from his lasers, more to give them something to worry about than to try and score a kill. Within seconds, he blazed past the TIE strikers and was looping back around to line up on their tails in a gut-dropping maneuver.
I'm hit! Engine 4 is gone!
Pull out, 7.
The strikers were still coming about. He lined his X-Wing up behind one of them and triggered a quad-link blast that blasted the aerospace fighter's fuselage in half. 2 more strikers in Bowlin's field of view were clipped by laser fire and went into uncontrolled spins. The survivors kept turning. It could turn much faster than Bowlin's X-Wing now that Bowlin had spent the energy from his dive. Instead of playing their game, Bowlin dumped power into his engine output and blasted past a wheeling striker heading north.
2 flight, stand by for your dive.
Watch it, 7. You've got one on your tail. Dive!
Bowlin banked his X-Wing and twisted around to get a look. 3 dagger-winged TIE strikers were converging on an X-Wing trailing black smoke and twisting desperately.
2 flight, make your run!
4, copy.
They're all over me! I can't shake them!
Bowlin watched the X-Wing break up under concentrated laser fire, exploding in a shower of sparks and flames. Too late, red laser blasts rained down among the pursuing strikers, winging 2 and exploding 1 spectacularly. Bowlin snarled.
Engage the remaining strikers. Don't chase them if they run. We need to stay close to the cell. 1 flight on me. We're going after that AT-AT. Get that torpedo ready, 2.
Copy, boss.
3 on me. 2, come about to Mark 5. Stay high, then drop in the AT-AT. We'll get its attention, and you nail it from the top.
Roger, boss.
On your wing, leader.
Carol Blast, make it quick, boys. 2 squadrons of eyeballs, inbound. We've got maybe 2 minutes. 113A, you have to start lifting off now. We've got 2 more squadrons of TIEs inbound.
What about that AT-AT?
We'll worry about that AT-AT. Just get those freighters off the ground while you still can.
Bowlin dropped down low, and the dirty brown of Mont Aldis resolved into craggy ridges and meandering valleys carved by thin streams of water. Patches of green spotted the overwhelmingly barren dirt and rock of the landscape, passing rapidly beneath his snub fighter. The towering gray figure of a lone AT-AT loomed on the horizon, growing rapidly in Bowlin's sights. Bowlin triggered a burst from his lasers at long range, and the laser blast passed over the mechanical monster's shoulder harmlessly. But it took notice, and the head swung around to face them.
Take evasive action.
Are you alright, leader?
I'm alright. That was one hell of a shot. My shields are gone. I'm okay.
Break off, leader. You can't take another hit like that.
Breaking off. 2, hurry up.
Almost there, boss.
Bowlin pulled away from his attack run, dropping down into one of the valleys to shield himself from any more blasts from the AT-AT, and R5 started transferring power away from the engines and back into shields again.
Get those shields back up as fast as you can, R5. We're not staying here long.
Making my run. Torpedo away.
No good. No good. 113A. The AT-AT is targeting your position.
Bowlin throttled up and blasted up over the ridge, wheeling back around onto the distant AT-AT and arming his torpedo. He watched as a decrepit Action 4 transport blasting skyward tried to change course at the last moment, hesitating and hanging midair for a heartbeat. Then, overcharged laser blasts from the AT-AT ripped into the freighter's drive section. The transport listed briefly and dropped from the sky, crashing and sliding down the side of a rocky ridge in a cloud of smoke and dust.
2, cover me. I'm coming around 2.5.
Wait! I'm out of position.
Get the shields.
The AT-AT loomed in Bolin's sights as he armed his lone proton torpedo. The AT-AT fired again into the transport, and Bowlin, pressing his cheek to his targeting computer, didn't see it explode as he launched his own torpedo at the walker's exposed neck. The torpedo lanced out, the motor burning red hot, and Bowlin pulled up and away from the AT-AT's arc of fire. He banked to watch the torpedo impact the walker's neck, severing it in a fireball and sending the command compartment cartwheeling through the air, trailing steam and smoke.
Good hit, leader.
All remaining transports lifting off.
Bowlin watched as 3 light freighters emerged from behind a ridgeline not far from the burning wreck of the Action 4 and started climbing for space.
113A, I'm sorry.
Just get the rest of us out of this, Killjoy.
We're with you, 113A.
Strikers are down, lead. We lost 5, and 9 lost engine 1. Everyone else is alright.
Bowlin thumped an angry fist against the side of his canopy and swore under his breath.
Copy 4. Form up on 113A's transports, everyone. Let's get them out of here. Take 25% from the lasers, R5. That ought to bring the shields up faster. I'll need full engines for the climb, R5. We'll be alright, don't worry. 2, 3, form up on me. 3, take point. My shields are at 30%.
Copy, leader.
Moving, leader. I'm sorry. About the walker.
Save that crap for after the mission, too. I need you on my wing now.
Copy, leader.
Engine straining, Bowlin pulled into a steep climb alongside the 3 light freighters of the rebel cell. Captain Gethis' Splendid Wind was in the lead, followed closely by a YT-2400 with several missing hull panels and a heavily modified red VCX-100 sporting an extra ventral ball turret. Bowlin wagged his S-foils in salute, but he knew they didn't have much time before the shooting started again. As the remainder of his squadron fell into a protective formation around the freighters, the signals of 2 squadrons of TIE fighters were filling his forward scopes. He'd just enough time to note the irony. He was going to commit the same tactical mistake that the TIE Striker squadron had earlier, climbing up to meet a diving enemy. Unlike the Strikers, he had no choice. More Imperials would be streaming into the system every minute. He had 2 squadrons of reinforcements coming soon, but the Imperials probably had half the sector fleet responding by now. Every second they spent in atmosphere made their escape less likely. There was no time to do this fight the right way.
Here they come.
Make your opening shots count. Stay close to the transports and cover each other.
Bowlin picked his target, a TIE leading a formation of 4 diving down on them through a patch of wispy clouds. Bowlin adjusted the spread of his lasers to converge at extreme range, lined up the TIE in his targeting bracket just as it passed into another cloud, and squeezed the trigger. His laser cannon cycled in a single fire mode, sending a stream of red far up into the cloud. The cloud lit up with flashes of red as the laser blast passed through it, but 4 intact TIEs burst to the other side. Bowlin fired again, this time more out of desperation, strafing his fire across the small formation as the TIEs returned fire. One of his shots punched through the lead TIE's viewport, and another ineffectually clipped the solar panel of another TIE, as the sky around him lit up with green blasts of near misses. Suddenly, the TIEs were behind him, quickly circling around to line up on his squadron's tail.
Shield, double rear, R5.
Break right, leader.
Bowlin stepped hard on the steering rudder, slipping his X-wing starboard to avoid a blast. One near miss buffeted his ship, almost sending him into a collision with Nols' X-wing. To Bowlin's left, the belly turret and rear guns of the VCX-100 pounded away, returning fire.
We'll cover the rear, Killjoys. Just keep our front clear.
Copy that. Watch for the other squadron, Killjoys.
Another squadron of TIEs dived through the thinning atmosphere, sending lasers blazing indiscriminately at long range. Bowlin lined up a shot and sent up a quad-linked blast of his own, bracketing a TIE fighter and exploding it spectacularly. Its comrades came on through the explosion, still firing wildly, and Bowlin found himself in the middle of the Imperial crossfire from above and below.
10's gone!
The surviving TIEs roared past, followed closely by the flaming, corkscrewing debris of their less fortunate comrades. Bowlin twisted back and forth as laser blasts seared past him on either side. There was a flash of an explosion to his left, and he glanced over in time to see the rebel YT-2400's main drive overload and explode, tearing the ship in half and sending both pieces spiraling downward in flames.
One flight, I'm me. We'll flip about and we'll...
Belay that, Killjoy leader. Stormcloud is inbound for Mark Frame.
Roger, Stormcloud. Good hunting.
Bowlin checked his sensors just in time to see 8 RZ-1 A-wings appear, their passive sensor jammers obscuring their signal right up until the last moment. Bowlin weaved and dipped as the TIEs below him tried to find their range, firing continuously on him and never realizing that they were in the A-wings' sights. He grinned fiercely. The A-wings had the perfect angle of attack on the TIEs. Abruptly, the green laser fire all around him ceased, and half of the TIEs on his rear scope winked off his sensors in quick succession. The others were scattering in panic.
Thanks, Stormcloud leader. Not a moment too soon.
Sorry to cast this long, Killjoy leader. Whitecap is 1 minute out.
Roger that. Killjoys, form it up. We still have to make it out to the jump point.
The atmosphere was thinning out now, quickly giving way to the black of space, and stars began to appear. The stars weren't the only points of light waiting for them in orbit, though. Imperial ships had been trickling into the system from the moment Bowlin's squadron had shown up in orbit. There was the Carrot cruiser closing on their position with its escort of TIEs, a light cruiser burning hard at them from out of the sun, and a pair of ET-49 decimators cresting the planetary horizon and coming at them at top speed.
What's our best jump point, R5? We need to get out of here in a hurry. That's it? Nothing closer? Well, raise your critical failure tolerance to 0.1. That's more like it. Better than get shot up by these reinforcements. Transmit to all friendlies, R5. All ships, set course for transmitted coordinates. That's our jump point. Match speed to the VCX.
Copy, lead. Copy, Killjoy leader.
Copy, Killjoy. Thanks for the assist. I guess this makes us even.
You're welcome. You can come back with us to Grayskull so you can get back on your feet.
Just don't start thinking you can trick me into signing up with the Alliance.
A wedge-shaped ship dropped out of hyperspace mere hundreds of meters to Bowlin's front. Before Bowlin could react, the Raider-class corvette's laser cannons opened fire, cutting into their formation. An A-wing and an X-wing vanished in a flash of concentrated laser fire, and the Raiders' guns immediately started tracking onto new targets.
Look out!
Break formation! Engage! Engage! Torpedoes free!
Fire from Bowlin, his squad mates, and the rebel freighters lanced out at the Raider, lighting up its reinforced force shields but doing little damage. Bowlin swung his ship around in a corkscrew as the Raiders' lasers blazed past, converging on a point behind it.
The shields are gone. We have to break.
Behind Bowlin there was a flash of light and heat as a splendid wind exploded under the withering, concentrated fire of the Raiders' laser cannons. Bowlin's hands went tight on his controls, and for a moment he couldn't think or react. A near miss from the Raiders' laser cannons jolted him back into awareness. He stepped hard on his etheric rudder, evading a stream of laser cannon fire and firing his own laser cannons at the Raider. His shots stitched over the Raider's hull, scorching the hole where the shields were weak and energy could bleed through. But the damage was minor, and he had to pull away to avoid colliding with the Corvette.
I'm hit! I can't maneuver!
Bowlin whipped his head around, straining against the G-forces of his maneuver. Nols was headed straight for the Raider.
Punch out! Punch out!
Nols' ejection seat shot out of his stricken ship, through a hail of laser cannon fire. The shot clipped the seat and sent it spinning through space. Bowlin watched as his friend's X-wing slammed into the side of the Raider in a shower of sparks and flame. The Raider shuddered visibly, and his guns fell silent as it clattered and pushed at the debris of the collision. But before Bowlin could order a follow-up attack, the guns flashed back to life, spouting their green hate again, just as strong as before.
3, are you alright? Report!
There was no answer. Bowlin, already numb, felt rage filling his body. He pulled his X-wing back into attack position and pumped another volley of laser fire into the Raiders aft, where the ship's shielding absorbed most of the damage again. Gun turrets on the Raider swiveled to engage him, and laser fire crisscrossed over the nose of his X-wing, forcing him to pull out of the attack run.
Killjoys, this is Whitecap leader. Stand by. We're inbound.
Hurry up, we're getting torn apart!
We're setting up for our attack run, Killjoy leader. Hang in there.
Green flashes illuminated Bowlin's cockpit, and Bowlin's X-wing shuddered. He felt a flash of heat beneath him as a laser blast cut through his X-wing's belly. If he'd still had a torpedo in his magazine, it would have exploded and torn Bowlin and his X-wing to shreds in an eye blink. Instead, it merely fried Bowlin's inertial dampener. Bowlin was immediately pinned back in his seat, the full force of his acceleration suddenly imposed on his body like a bantha sitting on his chest. The engines automatically cut thrust, taking the weight off but leaving him dead in space. Bowlin winced, expecting to be blasted into atoms, but the Raiders' lasers tracked onto a new target, leaving him to drift. They probably figured he was dead or disabled, no longer a threat in any case.
R5, can we get the dampeners back online? Well, can we at least make the jump to hyperspace? I'll have to take that chance.
Torpedoes away.
Bowlin gently turned his X-Wing around to face the Raider. Even that mild maneuver pressed him down into a seat, and he struggled to keep his chin up under the weight. But it was worth it to see the Raider buckle, shudder, and break apart as a chain of proton torpedoes slammed into its midline. 8 wishbone-shaped Y-Wings pulled out of their attack run in perfect unison as the Imperial ship cracked in two, strewing debris across space.
Target destroyed. Sorry we're late, Killjoy. Let's get out of here.
Affirmative. All ships, make for the jump point. Best speed.
Killjoy lead, this is the freighter Sleepwalker. We're picking up 2 of your ejected pilots. The Moncal's in bad shape, but still alive, according to our scopes.
Bowlin felt some small amount of relief, turning to watch as the VCX-100 maneuvered delicately while pulling an ejection seat into its bay. Nols might make it after all.
Thanks, Sleepwalker. What about the other ships?
Nothing. No one made it off the Splendid.
Bowlin slumped back into his crash couch. He'd had people die under his command before. It was awful each time, and every one of those people was a weight on his conscience. Today was a nightmare he'd be reliving the rest of his life.
Are you alright to jump, leader?
Let's get out of here.
As he carefully accelerated toward the jump point, which was less than a kilometer away, Bowlin forced himself to take stock of his battered squadron. Only 5 X-Wings, counting himself, were left. Less than half of what he jumped into the system with. The last remaining rebel transport, the Sleepwalker, blasted past him on its way to the jump point, and he watched as it paused briefly, then disappeared into hyperspace. At least it hadn't been all for nothing. Almost, though. He felt utterly drained as he approached the jump point, watching the rest of his squadron, the A-Wings and Y-Wings, jump out by 2s and 3s, until it was just him, limping onto the jump point just a few minutes ahead of pursuit.
Alright, R5. Cross manipulators. Time to get the hell out of this damn system.
He reached up and pulled the lever to trigger the jump to hyperspace. The engines thrummed, and he felt a rush as the ship accelerated, but there was no jump. The pitch of the engine suddenly changed. A warning light flashed, and the last thing Bowlin experienced was a sensation of being thrown forward against his restraints like a rag doll, as everything exploded. Aboard the Raider-class Corvette Hotspur, Agent Haldon considered the wreck of the Fearless the sister ship to his own Raider-class Corvette. The rebels had torn her in half, not before taking severe losses themselves, but regardless of the damage it had inflicted before being destroyed, the loss of the ship was palpable. He didn't have enough Raiders at his disposal, and losing one hurt. The Starfighter losses he spared a mere glance. They were trivial. The Empire had thousands of TIE fighters to replace any lost here, and new pilots were being trained every day. Still, the rebels had been bled here. The cell on Mont Aldis had been virtually destroyed, and the squadron of X-Wings that had been sent to protect it had been decimated. It was not the worst trade of casualties the Empire had made, and he was pleased with the Navy's performance, something he could rarely say. He nodded to himself in satisfaction. The information purchased from that detestable arms peddler Fortin Voss had proved worth its cost. A light winked on Haldon's control panel, and he opened the comm channel. The face of a naval medic appeared. Behind him, a slate-gray medical droid was operating on the rebel pilot they had recovered earlier.
Report.
Agent Holden, the prisoner is alive and in stable condition. The ship's computer is 43% confident that his identity is Jek Bowlin, native of Chandrilla and a suspected rebel.
Excellent. When he gains consciousness, we'll begin the interrogation. Ensure nothing jeopardizes his survival. He is the key to the location of the rebel base in this subsector.
Haldon closed the comm link but kept the video feed up, watching the medical droid work on the captured rebel. He could scarcely believe his luck. This was none other than Colonel Bowlin of Killjoy Squadron. He smiled to himself and cracked his knuckles in anticipation. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to help us continue improving and expanding our channel's content.